Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the U.S.-India Chamber of Commerce 6th Annual Women's Conference. My name is Susan Phillips, and I have the honor of serving as the Executive Director of the Chamber. Before we get started with today's program, please make sure to silence your phones, and if you need to take a phone call, please step out of the room and out of respect for our speakers and fellow guests. As the pandemic has loosened its grip on the country, I'm beyond delighted that things have opened up enough for us to gather together. This is an amazing gathering right now. I'm so excited to see everybody here. Now, our world is in a constant state of change, and with our business communities experiencing the Great Resignation and the Great Return, we have no choice but to adjust accordingly. And same is true of our personal lives. Now, our conference theme today is defining success in times of change. Whether you call it disruption, challenges, obstacles, problems, or struggles, we all face them at some point in our lives. And finding your way out is daunting but not impossible. Our speakers today come from diverse backgrounds and industries and are also in different stages in their lives and careers. They all have faced their own set of obstacles and failures, but overcame those challenges through tenacity, grit, and determination. Through their experiences, they perceived and set their own standards of success. They are ready to share their stories with us today. But before we begin, before we move to our next segment, I want to take a minute to acknowledge the board members that are here today. Would all our board members please just stand up for a minute and be acknowledged? Thank you. Wonderful. And I also want to thank our leadership today. Thank you, Mr. Chairman Sunil Mago, Chairman-elect Sanjeev Khanna, and our founding chairman, Mr. Ashok Mago. And thank you to the ladies on the Women's Committee for the conference planning, Ms. Anita Narula, Ms. Lakshmi Tumala, Ms. Neil Ganagantla. And I want to give a special shout out to our event chair, Ms. Neeti Kaitan. Woohoo! Thank you, Neeti, for all the effort you took in meticulously planning every detail of this event. And from the smiles in this room, it has really paid off. So thank you, my friend. And of course, a big thank you goes to the entire board of the U.S.-India Chamber of Commerce. Not everyone was able to make it today, but without these individuals giving their time and their treasure, we could not host events like these. So please give them a round of applause as well. And of course, we have our sponsors, our fabulous sponsors that have supported us today. And they include UT Dallas JSOM, UT Dallas JSOM Business Analytics Department, UT Dallas Johnson School of Engineering, yes, UT Dallas Rocks, Black Box, Demi Hour, Truist, DFW Airport, Ms. Lakshmi Tumala, CPNY, Merrill Lynch, Mr. A.K. Mago, ILE Homes, Dallas Venture Capital, Caris Health, CoAchieve, Billingsley, Moss Adams, Kintelli, EM3, Sawai Restaurant, Seed Phytonutrients, and Mr. Sunil Maini, CPA, and Swadharma. And of course, we are grateful to all of our speakers and moderators who have taken time out of their busy schedules to share their stories and insights with us today. Thank you, Neil Ganagantla, Ms. Vinitha Narayanan, Renda Matthews, Kenya Mobley, Nikki Fenyawatana, and Veena Somareddy. We truly appreciate your contribution today. And thank you, of course, to our community partners who helped us spread the word about this event, and our media partners who are here with us today. And you can find a full list of our partners in your programs. Before we move into the next segment of our program, I would like to invite 3 very special women to the stage. There we go. Awesome. I know Karika is not here today. She fell sick and fell ill today, so she is not able to attend. But we do want to recognize her. If I could have Ms. Priya Shah, are you here in the room? come on up. Please come to the stage. And Miss Rina Batra. Rina, I know you're here. You can't escape us. Okay, as the planning committee was putting together this event, we really wanted to make sure that we bring you the best possible experience today. And these women, and of course Ms. Rakhee Patel is not with us, but these three women donated and generously gave their donated gifts for us to be able to present. Sure. Mom, are you here? Are you here, Ms. Rakhee Patel's mother, to accept these beautiful flowers on her behalf? Okay, and if I could ask you ladies to stand to the front, we're going to take a picture. So right in front of the chairs would be fine. Thank you. And you know, so let me explain each of these gifts that these ladies have provided us today. The bags that you received that were on the table or on your chairs, the gift giveaways, those are from Seed Phytonutrients, which is Ms. Rakhee Patel, that's the proud mama right over there. Those bags are worth $250 worth of product. So that is something. Thank you so much. I can't wait to try it. And of course, after this, a little later in the event, we will be toasting to our award winners today, and we will have a champagne toast, compliments of Ms. Rina Batra. Thank you, Rina. And of course, towards the end of the event, we have like dessert and coffee that will be served in the lobby. And that is compliments of Ms. Priya Shah. So thank you, Priya. We can't have a USICOC women's event without a sweet ending. So that makes a huge difference. Thank you. So as we move on, you know, this is a very special time for us. But Mr. Sumanil Maini, who is our chairman, was unable to come today. For those of you who do not know him, he is a CPA, and this is a critical time for him. So he shares his support and just his love to everybody here and support of this event. So on his behalf, I extend a big thank you for coming, everybody, and we'll make sure and give him feedback on how well this event has gone. But without further ado, it gives me great pleasure to invite Miss Anita Narula. Please come to the front. Anita, where are you? There she is. Okay. And she's the Vice President of Payment Operations at Optum, which is a United Healthcare affiliate, or actually a subsidiary, correct? And a USICOC board member. And she's here to set the stage for our keynote conversation. Anita is extremely passionate about serving the communities here and leading women empowerment initiatives in this area. She is a champion of this event and a sponsor. Please join me in welcoming Ms. Anita Narula. It's yours.
Thank you, Susan, and good morning, everyone. I'm delighted that I have been given this opportunity. Actually, when I say given this opportunity, I actually wanted this opportunity because it's a privilege to introduce the moderator of today's keynote conversation. I am smiling ear to ear, and you can see that, as I introduce her, as she is known and loved and respected by many of us here today. It is none other than, if you've not guessed, our very own Neil Gonagonthala. I have the privilege of getting to know her. I say, you know, when we say a soul sister, an ally, if somebody said, who is an ally, the first name that comes to my mind is Neil. And as you know, our topic today, our whole theme today actually was exemplified when COVID hit, the pandemic hit, how Neil managed through that. Not only was she a supporter of the community, the law enforcement, the healthcare people who gave so much to the community, she championed the horrific spread in India and tried to support that here and rallied the troops to bring that support and swiveled our chamber, right? The whole events, we swiveled, we still hosted successful events through this pandemic, thanks to Neil, who could just swivel, I say, turn on a dime and lead us through it. So thank you for that, Neil. She is now the board of directors and the past president of US-India Chamber of Commerce, and she is an attorney. Okay, when I say that, I think she gives all lawyers a great reputation, right out there. She does that. And a business professional with over 10 years of executive experience. She served as the president of Ready to Work, an education and workforce development startup for nearly 4 years. Then we had the privilege that she was our president of the US-India Chamber of Commerce, DFW, from 2014 to 2021, and now has joined the Chamber's Board of Directors in 2022, and we're better for it, Neil. In addition to the Chamber, Ms. Gongonthala serves in a number of other leadership roles with other civic organizations in the North Texas area. So please join me in welcoming Neil.
Wow, I wasn't expecting such a wonderful introduction. I'm really touched. But I would be remiss if I said that there are many people in this room who deserve credit for many of those initiatives as well. A.K. Mago being one of them, our founding chairman, and really all of our board members who support everything that we do and gave me their unrelenting support through the past 7 years as the president of the chamber. But thank you, Anita, for those extremely kind and heartfelt words. I'm deeply moved and a little thrown off at the moment. 2 years ago, in February of 2020, we were sitting in this very room, seeking to inspire each other at this very event. And I don't think we knew at that moment just how much our lives would be upended by this pesky little thing called a coronavirus. 2 years of living in quarantine later, working from home, homeschooling for those of you that have children, taking care of family and friends, attending virtual conferences, hosting virtual conferences, and pretty much virtual everything later. Many of us find ourselves redefining what success means in these changing times, the theme of today's event. A perfect example of someone who has managed to define success in many different situations is our keynote speaker today, Ms. Vanitha Narayanan, and we are truly honored that she is joining us to share her incredible story with us. I know she's going to inspire us and leave us with a lot to think about, but before that, I wanted to remark that it is just such a blessing to be here with all of you in person in this moment. A lot had to go right for each and every one of us to be able to share this space today, and I'm just so grateful for that. I'm incredibly proud of the USICOC team and our board of directors. I want to second what Susan said for everything that they did to put this event together today. And she already thanked Neethi and Anita and Lakshmi, and their thanks is very, very well deserved. But I also wanted to thank AK. He rallied the board members, he emptied a few wallets, and did everything in his capacity to make this event extra special, to make sure we had everything we needed for this event to go off without a hitch. And I told him when he called me to empty my wallets that I also needed him to raise money for the Young Entrepreneurs group. And he said that he only works on women's initiatives now. So ladies, we have an excellent fundraiser in our corner. In all seriousness, we're truly grateful for the support of our board and our entire team. And many of our gentlemen board members are with us today. So I think they and the rest of the men in the room deserve a very warm welcome, so please stand up and let us show us our affection. Stand up. We have Gaurav Shaker, Dr. Bhatia, Pete Patel, and many of our male guests who are here. Thank you for joining us today. So, on to the conversation at hand. I'll just take a minute to introduce Ms. Vinitha Narayanan. Vinitha is a senior global executive and a board leader with a successful track record in telecommunications and technology. In 2020, she retired after a career spanning nearly 3 decades at IBM, where she held a number of multiple key roles, leading large businesses in the US, Asia Pacific, and India. These roles included everything from serving as managing director and chairwoman of IBM India, vice president for communications across Asia Pacific, vice president for global telecommunications solutions, and finally managing director for another strategic telecom client before her retirement. She was named one of the most powerful women in business in India by both Fortune magazine and Business India, and one of the 12 global Indian superwomen in 2016. She currently serves on the board of directors of Renew Global Energy PLC, one of the first renewable power companies in India, HCL Technologies, and Schlumberger. Please join me in welcoming Ms. Vinitha Narayanan to the stage.
Hello. Okay. Thank you.
So, Vinitha, you have an incredible story, and I just want to jump right into it. And I'm hoping that through the course of our conversation, we will really get a glimpse into your entire journey, and more importantly, into all of the characteristics that defined you, which also defined your success. So I don't want to, there's just so much, so let's get started. So you retired from IBM as the head of IBM India's chairwoman, and then also I think you held a number of other strategic roles in IBM as well right before retirement. And it's a technology firm, everybody knows it, International Business Machines, and yet you started off as a liberal arts major.
Yes.
With a degree in, I think, political science, advertising, and then I think you had an MBA in advertising and marketing.
Yes.
Which is a very unusual combination to retire as the head of a technology company. So can you tell us, how did you start and get to where you ended?
Well, when I headed IBM India, I would tell them I had to go to the US to get hired by IBM because India would not have hired me. So it was, you're right, back, I guess, 4 decades ago, particularly in India, you needed a technical degree to be hired by a technology firm. But I guess I was a bit of a contrarian, and anybody who grew up in India or has relatives in India, 4 decades ago, if you were a liberal arts major in India, you were somebody your parents worried about. So I decided to do liberal arts to frankly take revenge on my parents. They moved from Pune to Madras then, and I thought that was the end of my life as I would know it. So what better way for a Tambram to get back at her parents than to join liberal arts? So my mother could explain to every relative why I didn't do something that was in science or math. So we choose things for strange reasons, but probably was one of the best decisions of my life. In fact, I just wrote a blurb for the alumni magazine because Stella Maris, my alma mater, is 75 years old this year. And at a time when liberal arts wasn't really appreciated, my undergrad degree was in public relations and communication, which was one of the early degrees which gave you a vocational experience. So we did corporate internships and exposed us to a lot of working people. So it was an amazing education to get at that point in time. And later I discovered I do have an aptitude for quantitative things, so it wasn't something that completely shocked me. So when I moved to Houston, Texas in 1981, I started in a very different place because Houston, Texas in 1981 was not the technology capital or the marketing and advertising capital. And my first job was defined by how I could walk to it as opposed to what the job was about. So the only job I could get to was as a sales clerk at a department store called Josky's in Houston, Texas. So hence started my career 4 decades ago at $3.50 an hour.
So, the thing about liberal arts degrees is still true in the Indian community, even in the US. I'll just share a funny story. At my graduation, my dear uncle was visiting from India, and he goes, "Oh, they do give degrees for liberal arts majors." I was like, "Yes." And he goes, "And do they give you jobs too?" So it's still a thing. But anyway, so you started off selling televisions, if I'm not mistaken. Was it televisions at Josky's? Towels. And then you
I graduated, I moved my way up to commission selling.
Which was television?
Yes, my career progressed. It was first linens, then housewares, and then electronics, and that was the top of the pecking order. Yeah.
So you decided at one point that selling televisions wasn't going to be enough for you, and you decided to go to the University of Houston and pursue a second MBA.
Actually, I went back to the University of Houston, realizing that this was the early days in technology. So I thought, let me try computer programming. And so I took 2 classes, one in Fortran and one in COBOL, since we've already established how old I am. And I decided computer science was not for me. So I was going to go back to the business department, and rather than doing a degree again in marketing, I think I did my MBA in 13 months with a major in management information systems and accounting.
So how did you get from there to IBM? Because Houston is the oil and gas capital of the world.
Well, that's another sad story. So I, not the IBM part, but the oil and gas part. So I joined my MBA because this was the only way for somebody with a foreign name, foreign degree, no work experience, to get recruited. And back in those days, U of H would get everybody from Exxon, Shell, Pennzoil, Conoco, you name it. They came and everybody got recruited if you were any good. So therein, with, by then I was a mom with a little toddler, so here with lots of personal adjustments and sacrifices, go to University of Houston deciding that I'm going to get hired by one of these. And lo and behold, in 1987, I think gas was either at $17 a barrel or $18 a barrel, so nobody came to campus. So there ended the oil and gas dream. So 40 years later, I'm on the Schlumberger board, but that's, I happened to be sitting next to somebody, my first class, microeconomics, and she was a professional hire at IBM in St. Louis, Missouri, and she happened to give my resume to her boss, who called me, and I guess the rest was history.
So I'm curious, these days the average tenure of an employee, this is according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, is about 4.1 years at any given company. You spent 3 decades at IBM.
32 and a half years.
32 and a half years, yeah, that's a very long time. Why did you stay so long? What was it about IBM that made you want to stay?
If you ask my daughter, she'd say I'm a slow learner. And actually many things. Today we use phrases like, bring your whole self to work, be authentic. These are not phrases that we either knew or really comprehended 4 decades ago, and particularly as a first-generation immigrant. But when I was interviewing on campus, there were a few companies that came to campus, and one was, in fact, Arthur Andersen back then. And I remember wearing my only blue suit and going to the interview, and it was completely about this person who would one day be qualified to be partner. I never talked about the fact that I was married or I had a 3-year-old, and it just scared the heck out of me. If, God forbid, I get this job, my husband was an auditor and he travels, how do we even? But at that point, it was about getting a job. So here I come home, and Will Ulasek, the person who hired me from IBM, calls me and says, hey, Carolyn gave me your resume, and we'd like you to go do a test. I did a test, fast forward, did well in the test. He calls me by the time I get home and say, can you show up for an interview? And I said, sure. So we had scheduled something a couple of weeks out. And my husband traveled all the time. Will calls me 2 days later and says, can you travel tomorrow? I know you were supposed to come, but we're going to have a hiring freeze, and we really would like to see you before the hiring freeze comes on. And he said, Carolyn tells me your husband travels all the time and you have a 3-year-old. So if you need to bring her with you, we will buy her ticket and we'll have Carolyn or somebody watch her while you interview. This is 1987. And fortunately, my husband happened to be in town and I did not have to travel with my 3-year-old for my first out-of-town job interview. And so immediately, you walk in and the first question, oh, did you have somebody to take care of her? You're put at rest completely, because not only do they know who you are, they know what your constraints are. So I would say that probably, immediately set a very different tone for me, because this company wanted me, not just what I could bring to them. And the rest of it, when I look at it, in terms of opportunities, I never was short of opportunities to grow. So even though I never switched jobs, every year I would write down something new that I needed to do the following year. Because again, as you went through those early days where people get laid off, because we were in Houston when, times when people got laid off. And this was not because you were good or not good. It was just because of the times. So it was about skills. So I always wanted to be sure that even though I'm in the same company, and yes, they wanted me, but I always was mentally prepared based on what I've done today, I'm good for another 2 years. So what do I do adding to my resume the next 2 years so I'm good for the next 2 years? So that was always my mindset. And I had the growth, I had great bosses, and it's a company that aligned with my values.
Yeah, that's, I think, a really important lesson. I really appreciate what you said there, and that's you were always preparing yourself to be valuable to the company, even though, they wanted you and all of you and all of that, and not just what you could bring to them, but you were also looking at what you could do to make sure that
Absolutely.
was an enriching exchange for both of you. So I think that's a really powerful lesson for all of us. So you took the job in St. Louis with IBM, you moved up to St. Louis, and then somehow you found your way back to Texas, as most people do. And so you get back to Texas, but you come back because of a client.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about that, and why did they call you specifically?
It's so I joined St. Louis IBM in the sales area as an industry specialist on a telecom client, Southwestern Bell back then, and IBM wanted people to focus on industry depth, and I was one of the early recruits, so I never joined on the technology side. It was about learning, and my client taught me the industry, because there was not a lot of places you went to learn about a client's industry back in those days. And as a trainee, you can't do much damage because you're not doing much business in their industry. You're doing it in the data centers. So people let me have, I could basically go talk to any client I wanted. And if you were committed and you wanted to do right by them, people are so happy to teach you, right? And I was a sponge. So as I grew in the business and started work, everything I did was on the network side, for those of you that know telecom, on the network side of the business. And eventually, when our relationship with the client kept growing and they moved their headquarters back to Texas, we wanted somebody more senior on the team to be located in Texas, closer to the client. And at that point, I guess I was sort of nominated. I was always close to the client, and in Texas, it sort of afforded for us, my husband and I. My husband followed me to St. Louis and followed, again, we moved back to Dallas. So we decided, San Antonio was a bridge too far. Dallas would be good for both of us to move. So that's when we got back to Dallas in 1998.
How did you deliver customer satisfaction to that client in a way that made you the obvious choice to help lead this very important relationship, which is AT&T now? What do you think it was that made you the one?
I wouldn't say I was the one. I was, because I had a fantastic boss who in fact retired from IBM, heading that client for 40 years. So he stayed with the client all that time. And he was actually at my retirement Zoom call 4 decades later. I think it's very simple. And sometimes life has a funny way of helping you learn certain things. On the sales floor at Joski's, it's as close as you come to a client and you close a transaction and you listen. And I used to have, I'm going to deviate here, but I remember one day this little old lady, who walked in, and I said, "Ma'am, may I help you?" And she says, "Can I have somebody who speaks English that can come and help me?" And I said, "I'd love to help you, and let me try, and if I can't, I'll get somebody else to." And what I realized is, at the end of the day, she was like, "Thank you, honey, God bless you." But it was about 2 or 3 things. One, I had to slow down so that I could speak and be understood. So it wasn't about the fact that I knew or I could, add well in my head. I needed to communicate so that my customer or my client can actually understand me and not be uncomfortable trying to understand me. So it is, I think I always try to find a way of understanding my client's context so that they don't have to bridge to me, I bridge to them. And it's good for all relationships, but particularly for a client who's going to spend either their time with you or their money with you or both. And I think that's something that I learned, and maybe that's where not just my Joski's, but my public relations and communications experience helps as well. And the second thing is, just being incredibly honest. I remember we had a very difficult project where we missed multiple deadlines, and I didn't like the facts. So then I would tell my client, "I'm going to give you a date for a date because I've committed to dates that I can't keep. So at best, I'm going to give you a date, and I'll go talk to my team, and then I'll come and give you a date." So it was very important to me that any promises I made were promises kept, so that was part of your. So it was simple things, but I think that's something that I valued. And end of the day, every company is about the clients that you have. So for me, clients mattered. They sort of came first in my pecking order.
Yeah, that's great advice. So you ended up heading up this large client portfolio with AT&T, SBC, and then AT&T down the road. And then eventually you get, again, pointed to when IBM was looking to expand or launch the telecom business in India. So tell us a little bit about, again, why you, and what made you the preferred choice in that situation as well.
So we had a large client, and I wasn't heading the AT&T client, but I had a good role with that client. And as part of the global solutions team by then. And India was just growing at that point in time. So it was the whole telecom revolution in India. And 2G and wireless were all budding. And we needed somebody, and a consultant had done a market assessment study for us. So they needed someone who knew us as a company and knew our industry to go validate that plan. And it was a 3-year, $100 million plan. It's years ago, so I can talk about the numbers now. And at that point in time, 3 years, 100 million, going from zero was a material number. So when my boss asked me, by then I was working for somebody else, the general manager for Global Telecom. And I said, Mike, you do understand I don't know India from a work perspective. When I'm in India, I'm a daughter-in-law, I'm a sister. I have never worked in India. And he said, you know us, you know our industry, and you'll still be more sensitive and understand the local environment better than if I send somebody else. So that pretty much was sent me there. So I went there and met every client over the next 2.5 months, recruited our first early team there. And we had so I became sort of a mentor to the India team, besides doing the market assessment, and tremendous credit to the team. And we had a wonderful journey with telecom in India.
So you went to India, you were there for a few months, you added value there, you came back, and then you were later sent to China to head up the Asia Pacific telecommunications group for IBM.
Yes.
And if I recall correctly, that was one of the most challenging roles that you had up until that point, I think.
That would be true, yes. I came back from India, I had a couple of executive promotions, life was good, traveled out of Dallas all the time globally, and my daughter went to Plano West, and then to UT. So it was comfortable, and I was used to the rigor, and we had a new general manager who headed the sector, not just telecom, but all of what we call the communications sector. And he calls me one Friday and he says, I'd like you to go, head our business in Asia Pacific. And at that point it was Japan, Korea, Greater China, ASEAN, India, and Australia, New Zealand. So geography was a fair bit of geography. And I go, Gary, that's sort of, not what we... No, take your time. You've got all weekend. Talk to Ramesh about it. You can let me know Monday. So that was like a long time to think about it. And it just was one of those things where, to be honest, my in-laws happened to be visiting then. And my father-in-law was so excited about it. He's like, you should go. And my husband sort of, a little more thoughtful. But his reaction was, if you think you want to do this, you should, because, and in fact, early on, I wasn't sure that we would move as a family. In fact, I had this ridiculous idea that maybe I could just commute to Shanghai and Asia and, somehow manage that. And fortunately, I had a senior leader who said, don't make the mistake. If you're going, go as a family, or at least go as a unit. My daughter by then was graduating. And I'm glad for that advice. She said, because she did a tour of duty in Europe. She said, I was in Europe and the US and it was hard. So if you're in Shanghai and here, it's not practical. And my husband's reaction was, you know what, every move we've made has been a good move for us as a fammy, so let's go. Mm-hmm.
So what?
Oh, no, yes, it was all him.
But once you got there, what made it challenging?
There are multiple things. One, I think the most challenging was, if I'm, being a little facetious, but also true, was managing my team in Japan. When you're a 40-something Indian woman with 60-something Japanese males, you quickly learn the meaning of the word passive-aggressive. And so that was probably the most challenging team, to manage. but there's the language. There are 2 or 3 things. One, the geography is a little overwhelming because it's a lot of travel. But there are a few other things that I think you assume. And I thought I was very global. I led a global team before I went there. I had a global role. And then you realize that you are, when you spend the time with the team in Korea or China or Japan, you are so biased to listening to people who speak the loudest and people who speak English. So how you understand requirements, how you understand issues is far easier when you're in your time zone, and how difficult it is when you've got somebody from Korea who's trying to explain to you really, really important things at a time that's ridiculous for them in a language that they don't think or speak in. So one, it was about earning trust with each of the different teams, because Australia and New Zealand is very different and equally challenging in a very different way than Japan. India had its own sort of completely different dynamic. So every geography had its own culture, had its own way of working. And when you're running a role which is sort of, a headquarters sort of role, even though it's a regional role, you can't be everything to everyone. So it's also about figuring out how do you add value so you're not stepping on them and not trying to be everything to everybody. So I think figuring those things out and not just having a one size fits all and being credible, I think was definitely a learning experience.
Yeah. I can imagine that it would be challenging. And it's not just language, it's also cultures.
Yes.
It's cultural nuances that change from country to country in the region. I can imagine that being very, very different. But then you came back at one point, and then eventually you're promoted, I think, a few more times, and then sent to India, or you were sent to India as
from Shanghai.
Shanghai, okay, to become the chair, or in a different capacity first, and eventually promoted up to chair of IBM India, chairwoman. And then you were left to then run IBM's operations in India with 130,000 employees reporting to you. And I'm wondering, how did you find India now? So the first time you were there only for a few months.
Yeah.
And now you're there, you're in charge of everything. How was it? How was India?
Different. I left India in 1981 and moved back to India in 2009. So 28 years. Funny story, the first time I entered IBM India, the Bombay office, there's this smart young lady who walks up and says, and she says, "Hello, ma'am." So immediately, you're sort of, first time somebody's calling me ma'am, and so that sort of takes you back. And then she asked me, "When did you leave India?" I said, 81. "Oh my God, I was 2 years old then." So something that would happen only in India. So that was sort of welcome back to India. And it was different. So fortunately, I didn't go back to India to head India. I went back to India in what the company was trying to do as a general management head of sales role, and they wanted somebody to handle sales for all of the country. That allowed me to get to know the country and the clients, because it's one thing to have to be an expat in China, and you are an expat. They know you're an expat. When you go back to India looking the way you do, and Vanita Narayanan, you are expected to be local, but from my perspective, I worked and thought American. And my entire way of working and thinking was different. My communicating was different. So there were a lot of subtle differences in terms of how I needed to learn and adjust. Many things I learned, some things I didn't change, but it was a couple of jobs before I headed IBM India. And so that, I think, gave me a little bit of the runway to both earn my team's, if you will, trust and respect, as well as my understand the clients and the market.
So one of the things I found really interesting when we talked about your time in India is you said you chose almost never to wear Indian attire, but you almost always wore pantsuit.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that.
That's because I can't wear a sari gracefully. And and my mother would be mortified if she was here. She says, how can somebody be 50 years old and not? You used to wear it when you went to college. I said, that was 4 decades ago. And it was, and when I'm working, I'm sort of working. And I didn't want to be worried about, whether my sari was right or whether I would trip over myself, or so it's like putting on the uniform for me. So when all I had to decide is this going to be a navy blue shoe week where I pack in grays and blues, or is this a brown shoe week, and throw my stuff in, and this is, so I'm in my work mode, and that's the way it is. And it made me comfortable in who I was so that my focus could be on what I did.
Makes a lot of sense. So there were...
I hope it wasn't for the fact that I don't wear saris well.
So there were 3 things that we talked about when we were speaking before that were very, very striking to me. So I want to end with the 3 questions that came to mind. The first one is, when we were preparing our conversation, you mentioned you actually didn't consider yourself very ambitious.
No.
And you said you were very much a head down, very focused individual, focused on your work, driven more by what you were doing and how well you were doing it, and not necessarily by a promotion or getting to another level. And I found that very interesting because last year when we hosted Mandy Ginsberg, who is the CEO of Match.com, a $22 billion company, she said something very, very similar. And I found that very striking. So I wanted to ask you, do you think ambition is important, or do you think competence alone is sufficient?
That's an interesting question. I think you have to have pride in what you do. And the reason I say I wasn't ambitious is it appears, people would ask me, how did you, do you plan on this? I hadn't planned on any job that I would have. Because if you look at my background, and from, somebody who came to Houston in the 1980s when inflation was the highest, and, joined in the worst oil crisis, we were looking for security. So for me, it was always about, we as a dual income family would have security, job security. And as a first generation, set of immigrants with no safety nets, it was about building a level of, a safety net for ourselves. And then once you start to do anything, I think you want to do it to your satisfaction. And you have to have pride in what you do. And you never, so for me, it was never about somebody, I don't want to disappoint my boss. It was never that I was ever afraid of a boss or feared a boss. It was, I hated the thought of letting down one of my bosses. So it was about, always wanting to do well and not letting them down. So it was a different, and I'll tell you one story which is important because I was sent for some executive senior leadership development, and the reason I say I was ambitious, I was clueless that it was a leadership development event and why I was sent to it. And then later I had an executive interview with back then the number 2 person for the IBM company, a wonderful executive, Doug Elex. And he had been given my background or my executive profile, but I had no idea why I was meeting Doug. And so when he asked me he said, so what would you like to do next? I had no idea. I said, you know what? I've never thought about it, because every time, somebody just tells me this is what they want me to do next, and that's what I did. And Doug looked at me, and he could have immediately said, "Oh my God, she's clueless," and written up on my, and sent it back. His response was, "Good for you. There are too many people walking around worried about the next job that they forget to do the one they have." And, that stuck with me. So it wasn't just the fact that I was focused. I think the fact that somebody gave me that feedback also influenced how I looked at people later. So if I had somebody that constantly came to me asking me about the next job, it sort of turned me off. And it was, do the job that you have.
Yeah. So another very interesting thing, and I think this is going to be my last question so we can open it up to the floor. Something else I found really interesting is you mentioned that you intentionally chose to limit your social circle to just a couple of families. And you engaged with them regularly, but you really didn't socialize a whole lot, particularly with the broader Indian community or the broader community. And it's interesting because this is a theme very similar to something David Lippman said at our 2016 technology conference. And he just said, my wife hated the fact that I never showed up to anything. And I'm wondering, do you think that limiting your social network allowed you to focus, which allowed you to rise? Or do you think that this was more of a personal preference and may or may not have had an impact on your career?
Yeah, I don't know that there's a correlation or a causation there. It's just the number of cycles you had and how you chose to spend it. My husband and I have one daughter, and it was important that, in fact, after you and I spoke, I called my daughter and I said, "Growing up, did you think I was a good mother?" And she said, "Why are you asking me this?" I said, "I'm going to go, sit on stage, and if you thought I, whatever, I don't, I want to sort of have." She says, "No." She says, "As a mother now, I can appreciate what you went through with Dad traveling and you traveling." And she says, "I don't know that you were the most fun, but because you were always preoccupied, and I could see that you were always preoccupied with either, but I think for you, the way that you wanted to be a good mom was you always cooked for us. Anytime, every time you were home, it was always a good meal that you put on the table, and I know that, and you did. So it was about all the care and feeding and all that, first generation, hearing my mother and my mother-in-law in my ears going, feed them well." And so it's sort of those sorts of things, and I found that early on, if I went to a set of parties where you met a lot of people, and then you invited them all, and then you cooked all weekend for all of them, and it was not something. Those were days when we couldn't afford catering or anything else, so it was more about let me get my weekend to organize myself for the week, so that I'm prepared, and to the extent that we could take our daughter for swim lessons or tennis lessons or whatever it is we were doing, or cleaning the house or whatever that might have been. That's how we chose, and as a family we like to travel. So if we had that space, our way of sort of enjoying ourselves was traveling as a family. So large social networks wasn't my thing.
Yeah, I can tell you as the daughter of a professional mother that today I really appreciated her example, even if she wasn't there for like every tennis match or whatever.
Yeah.
But the example of her rising up and her teaching me as she was learning along the way herself in her own journey, I think those to me were some of the most powerful lessons I learned in leadership and everything else that I developed and am still developing. So I think I'm sure you taught a lot by example.
I hope.
Well, I want to open it up to audience Q&A. I do have more questions, but I want to give all of you an opportunity to ask as well. So I think, Anu, I think you can take the mic from me.
Thank you so much for speaking with us today. You've been so inspiring, and I really appreciate both Neil and you, Vanita, for taking the time to be present with us. I really appreciated what you said about getting the feedback that you did not have to think too far into the future. So I appreciate so much you demonstrating how to be in the present moment. I think we always are forgetting that the present moment is where we are right now. So thank you for demonstrating that despite whatever position that we are in, that to relish that and to appreciate it is so important. I think that's a huge lesson for all of us. And you really did demonstrate that, and that really gives us great pause to understand that. So thank you. The other question that I had for you was, you had said that it's important to put the client first. That is something that you understood very early on, and so appreciating that. But where in the journey did you understand that at some point you had to put yourself first for your self-care? Did you ever consider that? And was that something that you understood inherently that had to be done? Because many of us are helping others that are broken down. You know, if we're in healthcare, like myself, we're seeing the person, especially women, they're very hard on themselves. And the first question I often ask of them is, when will you put yourself first?
You know, that's a tough question. If I answered it very honestly, it would be, I started putting myself first when I retired 2 years ago, which is not a good answer. But I'll tell you, when I retired, I suddenly had no excuses either. It wasn't the client, because by then I wasn't raising a family, I wasn't traveling, I controlled, and COVID, you know, and I retired to travel, but then we had COVID, so I could cook for ourselves. We didn't have to, you know, I wasn't on a plane all the time. And, you know, I managed to lose a lot of weight, I managed to get healthy, and I managed to get, so, but if I go back and answer honestly, when you think about it, it depends on what role you have. It's your people, your employees, because as you start to rise in leadership, you worry about your people, your talent, your family, obviously, always. You don't get to do over, you know, with your family. And, but through this all, I would not be honest if I didn't say that I had a very supportive family. My parents, my husband, my in-laws. So in a way, they took care of me. And I think when you don't focus on yourself, but if you're fortunate enough and blessed enough to have people around you that sort of care for you. So I may not have done it in a conscious way, but I think my tribe took care of me. So, but it is, I think you make a very important point.
She actually took my question, but I'll ask you another one. Firstly, thank you so much. What an amazing journey. You're an inspiration.
Well, thank you.
As you went through your journey, I'm sure there probably were times when you could not go on anymore. How did you move yourself past that?
Oh, wow. It was in, we were still in St. Louis, and I was on a trip to Dallas, at one of the hotels in downtown Dallas. And when I told you about being honest with your client, we had this huge meeting with the client the next day. They had, you know, convened about 40 or 50 of their people that were going to be there. And my development team tells me, we're not going to deliver. So I'm in tears, you know, just completely in tears. And I, you know, call my manager in St. Louis and my boss, and I say, you know, how do I face them again? They're all here, and we've got these commitments we made. And he said, it must have been, 11:30 at night or whatever, way before cell phones. And he said, I want you to take a deep breath and go wash your face, drink a glass of water, call me back. So I did that. And he says, Vanitha, you can only be asked to do your best and be honest. The sun is going to rise in the east tomorrow morning. I promise you that. So, on the worst of nights or on the most difficult days, I'd always say, you know what, I've got my health, my family's got their health, and the sun will rise tomorrow morning. And I always remember Rick's words. And by nature, I am somebody who just plows through. It's not, I compartmentalize. So if I have a problem in one space, I don't let it bleed into everything. My mother was in ICU in Bangalore, and I was in the office. Now, the only person who knew was my assistant, because in the ICU, you're not allowed to be there. My office was 10 minutes away from the hospital. So rather than me stand in the corridor over there, not doing anything, I was sitting in my office running cadences, but if I needed to, I could be there. So I guess very early on, I learned to compartmentalize. So when I have a problem in one space, I try to move to another space and solve something and feel that I can empower myself, if you will, and not feel helpless. Yeah.
So I think we are out of time for today, and I just want to say thank you so much for being with us and for sharing your experiences and really your insights on how to be a great leader and how to rise, especially through trying and challenging times. So you've really helped us to understand what it can mean to redefine success. And with that, I want to ask everyone to give me, to join me in giving Vanitha a round of applause.
I just want to say thank you. And this is the largest group I've seen in Dallas since being back. We came back in the midst of COVID. So, thank you all and wish you all the very best. And thank you for having me here. It's been a pleasure and a privilege. And thank you, Niti. Thank you, Neil.
It's our privilege. Thank you. Thank you, Neil and Vanitha. That was amazing. So touching. 3 decades with the same company, that's unfounded. But, it sounds like IBM took all of you and you gave all to IBM. I mean, that's loyalty. That's loyalty. That's amazing on both sides, right? Thank you again. That was amazing. Okay, so now we are going to break for lunch. But while you guys are enjoying your lunch, we're going to give away some door prizes. And we have some really amazing door prizes today from just these great companies. And if I could, thank you. Vanna's up here giving me the tickets. Thank you. Just hang out there for just a second. And of course, our sponsors today for the door prizes, we have Massage Envy gift certificates, Mira Silks. So we have a sari to give away today. Sawai Food, it's a restaurant. Ayur Roots, it's an Ayurvedic consulting practice, and Kamra Jewels. So we actually have a couple of sets of jewelry to give away, and today, Kamra is giving a 20% discount to all the attendees online or at the store. I'm not sure if they have a store, but 20% off the any purchase of any jewels with a code of CHADDI. Am I saying that right? Could be saying that wrong. But CHAMDIS, CHAMDIS. So when you check out, use that promo code. Now for the drawing. Here we go. And the first prize, the first two prizes are for Massage Envy tickets, gift certificates worth $150 each. So the first prize goes to ticket number 543265. Woo! Yay! Stay there. They're gonna go and take it. Didn't have far to walk, that's great. Okay, now we can move on to the next one. We have, this is also for a Massage Envy gift certificate, 543392. Stand up, please. Okay, this lovely woman right back in the very, very back. You can stay there. She's going to bring it to you. Awesome. Okay, next we have a gift certificate worth $50 from Sawai Indian Restaurant, and it goes to, the winner is 543296. Oh, no, not so much. Anybody? Check your tickets. No? Okay, I'll pull another number. I shall pull another number. Here we go. 543369. We have a winner back there. Congratulations. Actually, just stay there. They're going to bring it to you. Okay, next is for the jewelry set from Camra. Yay. Okay, ready? 543322. 543322. Yay. Okay, there we go. Okay. And we have the sari from Mira Silks, goes to 543300. 543300. Oh, right there. Please stand. If you don't mind standing so they can see you. There you go. And the next, we have 3 gift certificates to Ayur Roots Ayurvedic Consulting. I'm going to mix this up a little bit. Get some from the bottom. Okay. Here we go. First winner is 543344. 44. Please stand. They'll bring it to you. Congratulations. Okay. Let me just get some other numbers down here. Okay, here we go. All right, next winner, 54335. Wait, 543335. Pardon me. Any winners? Anybody? 543335. Oh, right there. Pardon me. Okay. Next winner, 543368. 68. Back there. Stand up, please. We are going to give away the second set of door prizes right now, so we're excited to do that today. Okay, here we go. We have 2 Ayur Roots gift certificates worth $150 each, and the winning ticket number for first one is 543268. And that was a little loud, sorry. The second winner is 543388. 88, over there. I think it's, Ram, is that you? Okay, he's over there in that corner. Okay. And this is for a Massage Envy gift certificate worth $150. 543388. And this is for a Massage Envy gift certificate for $150. I need that about right now. Okay. For a Sawai gift certificate for $50, thank you, Priya. We have 543343. Please stand. There we go. Wonderful. Okay. And for the last one, we have the last set of Camera jewelry. Yay, yes, it's 543360. 60. What is that? There's one more, Aya Roots, okay. So did anybody stand up? Did you won? Camera, over there, what do you know? You lucky man. I want to see you wear it. All right, we have one more gift certificate from Aya Roots to give, and that goes to 543325. 325. Anybody? Last chance. 325. Anybody know? Okay, I'm going to draw again. 543295. 295. Anybody? Yay, okay. Congratulations, prize winners. You guys are going to love it. Enjoy your lunch. We will be back shortly after you've enjoyed your lunch, and we will reconnect in a minute. Okay, we are ready for our awards, and we have two fabulous, very special awards we want to present today. And before we start, I would like to request that all the board members that are here, if you could please come to the very front of the stage, just right here at the floor, in the front. We're gonna be presenting awards, and we want you all to be there. So that means, who all is here? Thank you, Pete. Gaurav, thank you. Lakshmi is here. The award will be presented to all the winners by our board members, and the first award, Women Helping Women, is presented to none other than Ms. Debjani Biswas. Debjani has been a longtime advocate for women's empowerment. Through her company, CoAchieve, she engages with corporate leaders to address topics related to gender equity. As an executive coach, she shepherds women and men to be inclusive leaders and to practice leadership through the lens of diversity. She's a leader among leaders, and that empowers women through mentoring and discussions on gender bias. There is no one more deserving for this award than Debjani. Debjani, please come to the front, actually. Sydney, can you grab one of the the awards? Oh, she already gave it? Okay. Wonderful. Thank you, Debjani. Yes. Thank you so much. Congratulations, Debjani. We're so thrilled to have given that to you. Okay, and the next award is the Power Woman Award. Oh my goodness. And we are proud to present this award to Miss Juhi Chawla. You don't have far to walk. That's awesome. And Juhi is the Director of Information Technology for the North Texas Tollway, better known as NTTA. We take it every day. Her knowledge and experience has elevated her to be an incredible transformational leader in technology. Juhi, you have a lot of responsibility on your shoulders, and you carry that responsibility with grace and authority. No one deserves this award better than you. Congratulations. You personify Power Woman, my friend. Amazing. Very good. You got the picture, yes? Picture's done? Okay. Thank you, board members, for your support and in presenting this, and you can return to your tables. And now is the time for our toast. You know, I wanted to propose a toast to our winners, both Ms. Debjani Biswas and to Juhi Chawla. Cheers to you, ladies, for everything you do, have done, and continue to do. Our panel discussion. So before we go, I want to introduce Ms. Lakshmi Tumala. Lakshmi is a board member of the organization, and she's been with us for so long, and she's a big supporter of this event. We want to welcome Lakshmi. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan, and thank you, everybody, for being here. It has been a very challenging 2 years for everybody. I know we've all been through a lot. Some have had losses, but overall, we're here today to enjoy this and celebrate each other. And I celebrate each and every one of you for making it through probably one of the most difficult 2 years, but you have made it. And a big round of applause. So let's celebrate today. So it's my pleasure now to introduce the panel moderator for our panel discussion on defining success in times of change, and that is Ms. Renda Matthew. Renda is a senior vice president and serves as the Dallas market president at Trust Bank. She is a lifelong resident of Dallas area. She begins with a passion for helping businesses grow and continues with developing relationships with the people who own them and the teams that run them. Her 20 years in banking allows her to bring solution-based financing and planning. This background aligns with the Chamber's key components of partnering with the community and empowering healthy economic growth while enhancing the quality of life for her hometown. Besides enjoying her work assisting business owners and their families, Renda enjoys traveling, and her favorite city is Sydney. Is that right? Okay. When she isn't working with clients or planning a trip, she enjoys spending time with her husband, Russell Hayward, and their children. Thank you so much for being here with us today, and we're looking forward to this. Thank you.
Hi, so nice to be here. I'm going to ask my participants for the panel to join me up on stage. So Veena, Nikki, Kenya, come on up. Thank you, ladies, for being up here. I'm going to give you a chance to introduce yourselves so everyone can know who you are, what you do, which company you work for, or which company you own, and turn it over to you. We'll start with you, Veena.
Yeah, sure. Thank you everyone for being here on a Friday. This is a really packed room, so happy to see everyone. I'm Rina Reddy, the CEO of Neuro Rehab VR. We develop virtual reality applications for physical therapy and cognitive therapy, and I love building applications, and that's my introduction.
Thank you guys for being here today. My name is Kenya Mobley. I am the owner and CEO of On Track Truck Driving School. It is Arlington's first female owned truck driving school, and which happens to be a Black woman. Also, and to date, it's only 9 of us operating in the US. So kind of like a unicorn. So thank you guys.
Hello, my name is Nikki Pina-Watana. I'm the founder and owner of Asian Mint Restaurants. We've been around for 18 years now. Who's been to Asian Mint before? Okay, that's good. Yes, love that. I also bring my own spices to the table. But yes, I'm really proud of what we do. I got into this because I love to feed and I love to serve, and was very lucky enough to be able to find my calling at a pretty young age.
Thank you all. You know, ladies, as you know, our topic is about defining success in times of change, and this has definitely been a lot of change happening, right, in the last couple of years. So I'm going to start with asking some questions to Kenya, if I can start with you. Kenya, with COVID and just this general sense of all of this change that's been happening over the last couple of years, right? How have you gotten out of situations that didn't work for you, whether it was related to the pandemic or just related to career?
Oh, that's a good one. So I always authentic to myself. I have a mission statement for my life, and I have core values. So I always circle back to those things. And if whatever's going on does not align with who I am and my purpose, flip the strip and I'm on to something else.
Can you tell us some of those core values?
Some of my core values is family, unity, self-love, worthiness, and of course my religion, God.
Yep.
Yes. Yes. Okay.
Thank you, Kenya. Vina, you know, when we met last week, we talked a lot about being a young CTO of your company and co-founder in your company. We talked a little bit about imposter syndrome, and I think many of us probably feel that way, right? How did you navigate your way through it?
Thank you for that question, and that's something that I've dealt with for a long time. I'm sure a lot of young people here are too. So especially being founder of a tech company in a very male-dominated space, this was something that I had to deal with since the beginning. And it's only about a couple years to a year that I've gotten over that imposter syndrome, and I help other young women overcome it. So it started with me being panels on such like these and with comparable other companies in the area, in the space. And when I am on these panels and I talk about what we do and the achievements we have done, and that's when I started to realize like I'm as good as they are. Yes. And that was something that helped me overcome that imposter syndrome. And then also being in this industry for a long time and having the technical skills. Usually when somebody thinks about virtual reality and technical skills, they do not think about me, even though I know how to build an app in a weekend at this point too, but that's something that kind of brings you down sometimes when going to your male counterparts versus you. But then again, and then you watch your male counterparts and others build their companies, and sometimes I observe them and I'm like, if it was me, I wouldn't have done that because these are the reasons. And it turns out right 2 years later. So just seeing that happen and the journey they've taken and the decisions I've made for my company and where we are at right now made me realize that I know what I'm doing. It's not easy and it takes a few years, but keep at it. And I'm sure like anybody who feels that way, just go learn. Learning is the best thing that you can do for yourself, acquiring those skills that you need. Working on a startup, for right now, I'm like, I can learn anything and do it, and that's how I also, kind of try to integrate that into my team members and anything that we do right now.
Yeah, thank you. I think we've all experienced that, right? So, Kenya, you look like you're busting at something you want to say. Please share.
Imposter syndrome every day. Imposter syndrome right now. Because I'm trying to figure out, like, how did a country girl from Mississippi land on this stage? Like, you know, you have that self-talk that tell you, oh, you're not supposed to be here, but you have to talk yourself through it and say, yes, I worked very hard, and I deserve my seat at the table. So you just have to remind yourself, like, I deserve to be here.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So talking about that table, Nikki, we talked about your dinner table, right?
Yeah.
And some of the questions you ask your children. Can you tell us about that one particular question that we discussed? And I have a follow-up to that.
Okay. I love that you guys love that story, but it's something that I've learned from, I guess, YouTube a lot. I do use YouTube often to lift my spirits, you know, in times that it's hard, and, you know, watch some motivational videos. And there was one of these that was Sarah Bakley, the owner of Spanx. And she was telling her story that when she was growing up, at the dinner table, her father would always ask them after school and, you know, at dinner time, so what did you fail at today? You know? And the kids would be like, why do you want me to fail? You know? And I'm like, well, fail now so that when you actually go into the real world and there are life situations that push you down and whatnot, it's not so hard. So I do that with my kids. And at first, the first time, my daughter's 8 and my son's 13 now. I think we've been doing it for 5 years or so. And they would look at me and I'm like, Mom, why do you want me to fail? Like, that's just the weirdest. And then I had to give the whole story of like, well, this billionaire, this woman billionaire did this, and look where she got her. So it's just been so fun. And they actually are becoming more comfortable with the question. So it just takes time, and it's not easy. And every now and then I'll try to turn on the YouTube, like, I don't want to listen to that. And I'm like, they want to listen to music. Or things like, but I just continue that one day it's going to absorb.
Yeah, there you go. Well, as a follow-up to that, what has failure taught you?
Many, 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 many things. Another thing that recently that I've heard was failure and success are not on opposite ends of your journey. Failure is actually on the same path to your success. The more failures you have, the more lessons you learn, and make sure that you learn from them so that you can get up and take that lessons and move on to the next thing that you need to fail at or succeed at, and eventually, hopefully, it'll succeed. I have a great example. So right before COVID in 2018, I have 4 restaurants at the moment, going on 5, and my third one, I wanted to do something different. I don't know if anyone even remembers this. Thank God COVID happened, because that was a really fun failure. And I wanted to open a new restaurant concept called Enjoyment in Richardson. It is probably 2-3 years ahead of its time. It was kiosk-based, no cash, cashless, very appropriate for COVID. But unfortunately, I closed it right before because it wasn't working well. I have a really big lesson is, I didn't realize how big my fan base was, imposter syndrome. I didn't realize how wide of a community that I was serving all the way over in Richardson. And I wanted to try something new. They would come in, my guests would come in and be like, oh, Nikki, I'm so excited you're in my city, but I would really love an Asian Mitt. So they would come and support a few times, and I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna go back to the Forest Lane location because that's what I really want. And I'm like, I'm gonna try this for 1 year, every year, losing money. My staff is like, what are you doing? Why don't you just like grab something that you have done successfully and just do that? I'm like, but I wanna try something new and fail at it miserably. And you know, it was a lesson learned, like, just do what you're good at, and maybe there's another opportunity to use that, maybe in an airport, or maybe now that COVID's in, people now love cashless. At the time, people were like, why won't you take my cash? It was really interesting. So yeah, that was a great lesson learned, and now it's a regular Asian Mint full service, and people are loving it again. So.
Great. Great. Vina?
Yeah, I do have. Thank you for that story. I do have something to add about where I thought I was the biggest failure for the longest time. Is if you have, since this is more of an Asian community, you definitely understand everything that your parents are expecting from you. You need to do your bachelor's, do your master's, get a job, get married, get property, and that's the path that's set for you. But I knew I always wanted to start a company, but so I was making my decisions based on that, which was not, conventional. So as I finished my master's, I started to work for a startup when all my friends were working for an Adobe, an Intel, a Google. And I felt on my 25th birthday as the biggest failure, that I'm not doing anything with my life. And then because of visa issues, I had to go back to school to work on my PhD. And while I was doing that again, I saw my friends getting higher salaries, going up, and they're becoming senior developers, and I'm stuck with a PhD. So I just wanted to tell everyone, for me, that time was like the biggest failure of my life, but then I got through it and I started to work on build MVPs for other people's startup ideas, because even if I can't make one, I will help others. And that's how it started. Eventually, I was able to build my own company, and at this point, I think I'm fairly successful. Not there yet, but you can get over it. And like you said, it's a journey, and you just have to keep building and building, and you'll get there one day.
When we spoke to, all of you mentioned serving others, right? Whether it's your clients or your community or people that need your help, right? Kenya, you specifically said, am I supposed to be serving in a greater capacity? And that's a question that you ask yourself regularly. How do you serve at a greater capacity despite everything you already do? Like, who has time? How do you do it?
Well, I enjoy serving. So for me, a lot of people think when they see a truck driving school, they just think about, get a truck driver's license and you drive a truck. Well, my clients, they need more than that. I teach them a financial responsibility. We meditate. We work on the whole mindset. So once you get the parent whole, you send them back home to the kid, and they can water their own flower. Mm-hmm. So it's not just me taking care of the parent. I want to feed the parent who's going to feed the kid. Mm-hmm. And I want it to continue to go that way, and that way they can have a whole generation.
Yep.
So I want to serve on a bigger level than just give this parent a driver's license and let him out into the world.
Yeah, that whole generational blessing, right?
The whole generation.
Yeah. That's really beautiful. Nikki, what is your secret to rolling with it?
I'm rolling it right now. Wow. Don't take yourself so seriously, in a way. It's probably really important. We're all human beings. We're all on this planet to help each other and support each other. I am blessed enough to find communities that support me, and I support them. But without them, I would be nobody. It's my team that makes, everything run. It's my people, it's my family, it's my husband, it's my mom. It's a large community to make it happen, and I do really just roll with it. I'm trying to think.
You're rolling well.
I'm rolling well? Okay, I'll just come up with another story. Yeah, just believe in yourself, honestly. Believe in yourself, be authentic, and be true to, and try to find why you are, what your calling is and your purpose. And with that, the universe, I believe, will guide you the right direction, and you just need to listen to your gut. Us women have very, very powerful gut feelings, and a lot of times it's not always here that you need to be considering or making decisions by. You always need a gut check, and once I started doing that, it's been a good roll.
Great, thank you so much. We touched on it briefly, but I'd like for each of you to talk a little bit about your personal story of change, how you got from where you were to where you are today as a leader in your industry. Kenya, can we start with you?
I knew that was coming.
Yeah, you did.
But as I mentioned before, I'm from Greenville, Mississippi, right? It's So it's a small poverty town, and a whole lot of things happen in the community, right? Yeah. So I was a teen mom, everything imaginable happened to me. And I just decided one day that I needed change. So I packed my kids up, $2,000 in my pocket, and the car that the repo man was looking for, and made it to Texas. But the thing was, I wanted change. So if you want something different, you have to do something different. And that's just been my whole take on life, just do something different.
Mm-hmm. Great. What about you, Vina?
That is a powerful story, and it's hard to follow that one. But again, it comes back to me trying to understand what I want to do with my life. And my first job was at Infosys, being a systems engineer. And even though the title was systems engineer, I was doing a lot of QA testing, which is manual QA testing. I was not using my brain as much as I could. So that's when I realized this is not what I want to do for the rest of my life. And I knew that I wanted to get into, at that time, animation and filmmaking, but nobody really applied to come to the US when I was still in India to come to do that. And I still took the leap. And I was like, I will figure it out. And I landed in UT Dallas right here in the game design and development course. And I was the only Indian in the class for the whole course. And for me, that's when I thought, I'm a really, really smart person or I'm a really stupid person. It's one of these two. So nobody else chose it. Why am I choosing it? But I was able to make do. I was able to learn all the skills that I needed that I'm now being able to use for my company. And I think that was the best decision I made in my life, and I was able to be where I am right now. So recognize the change you want and just go and do it. Yeah.
Fantastic, fantastic. Nikki?
I guess one of the really interesting changes just coming out of COVID was when the restaurant industry got hit pretty hard, right? We had to close down dining rooms and all that. And I had to make a really difficult decision to decide, do I want to keep my restaurants open or not? And we had 4 at the time, and we're like, maybe we close 2 and keep 2 open. But I'm like, what am I gonna do with my staff? And we made that decision, and one of my team members said, Nikki, why do you want to do that? I'm like, I don't know. I really just don't know. But I listened to my team. They're like, just stay open, and let's see what happens. Luckily enough, our clientele, our Mint fanatics, came in and support us. And we're like, okay, we have a space and time for them. And one of the biggest stories that happened, and I think it caused more change, is I was at one of the locations, and it was probably a weekend after we had to close our dining rooms down. And she came up like in tears, and she's like, oh, what am I gonna do? I can't go sit at the bar and talk to my people and share my day. Like, that's like how I get lifted on a daily basis. And we're like a space. The restaurant is a space where you come and connect. We're not just feeding you, but we're really feeding your soul in a way so that you can go on and, do the best that you can do and how you were meant to be put on this earth. But when she came and did that, I just realized, like, wow, we're more than just a food. We're more than just feeding a plate into your tummy. And it just gave me more motivation to figure out, okay, how can I get a hot plate in your house without having a dining room? Yes, everything comes in a to-go container. It's great. You have to heat it up. And I'm like, let me figure something else out. And that just created a lot of interesting, I guess I call them COVID babies that I birthed. I birthed a YouTube channel and teaching people how to cook, and then the sauce line, meal kits. And it really is because of the people around me, and it's my staff. What am I gonna do? How can I keep them busy? How am I gonna pay them? We need to figure out how to create a stream of income while our dining room is shut down. But it is really all goes back to, I believe that I've been put on this earth and blessed enough to be able to create jobs for people, and I want to protect that. I know it's not just that one person that I'm feeding, it is their family that they're sharing their income with. And I think that comes from a deeper space of why we do what we do and why we change and why we lead in a certain particular way. It's always pretty much about our people.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. Thank you.
Vina, you touched on it earlier, but what advice would you give women that want to start their own companies or in the entrepreneurial spirit? What would you tell them?
I would say, start as soon as possible. You don't have, there's never a right time. So what I've always said is building the product or building an MVP and asking people if this is something that they need. Always do not create a solution and look for a problem, but create, ask people, understand what they want. And then as everybody thinks, forming the company, creating equity, and all of that comes later. So don't worry about that. Just go ahead and build what you want to build and surround yourself with the right people. Have that support system is what I would say. And I think one of the reasons I'm still here is because of the support system that I've built around me. And I have one person in the audience right there, Mr. George Brody. He's been an amazing support system, and sometimes I can call him about anything, and I know that he's there to help out with the company. And I do also have some of our investors right here. So this is for everybody in Dallas. There's an amazing ecosystem right here. You have the investment, you have the mentors, you have the people who have built companies, sold them, and this is the best time to start a company if you would want to just go ahead and do it. And for students who are still in school, I always say that's the best time to even start, because especially in UT Dallas, where I was able to find people in the computer science department, the business department, marketing, everybody you kind of need to start a company are already there. And that way, just starting with projects, you will know how you work with other people, what team do you want, what co-founders do you want, you start to understand all of that. So it's never, I'm going to build a company, it's going to happen. I think even though this is one company, I felt like I built 3 to 4 companies before that, working with the different teams of people to get to where I am right now to form the right team that we have. And that's also really, really important.
Yeah. Mentorship is definitely so important, right, in our community. So we encourage all of you to mentor and to be a mentee. Kenya, as a successful woman in business, right, how do you feel in your skin every day?
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to say I think America watched how it feels to be in my skin live a couple weeks ago with Supreme Ketanji Brown, you know.
Yeah.
You can, so you can be overly qualified. Even with me, I can be overly qualified and still get a no. And I have to be okay with that. I can walk into a bank with the same credentials as someone else and it's still a no. But I have to be okay with that. So me getting to a place with being okay with no's, that's what it feels like to be in my skin. Like, you say no, okay, I'm gonna do it anyway.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's what it feels like to be in my skin.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I'm going to ask you guys all the same question, and I suppose there could be different answers to this, the whole yes or no thing. But does it really matter what other people think of you? Who wants to start?
Yeah. It's a yes and a no. I'm still learning, through my journey. And as you're younger in your 20s, you think about a lot about what other people think about you. But as you grow older, you start to, it kind of changes a little bit. What I would say for me is what you should think about is your credibility. So I feel like I'm building my credibility as I go, and that's something that should, if others would want to know about you, and then that's when you form the support system. When you are credible and you do what you say, there'll be more people that will be to help you. But other than that, I don't feel you should think about what other people, say about you or think about you. Yeah.
Got it. Thank you. Who wants to go next?
Sure. I agree with you. It's a yes and a no. It depends on the situation. But I guess the older you grow, the less that you care, which is pretty awesome. Be comfortable in your own skin and shine bright, and you will attract the right people who you want in your tribe, who you want around you anyway. So if they are going to be around you and bring your spirit and your energy down, cut them off earlier than later. And there's very gracious ways to say it and to communicate that. And then I believe, again, in a lot of the energy field. If you surround yourself with great, amazing people who are much more successful than you, or are living in their skin and being very comfortable, you can learn and absorb a lot of that. And I want to be an example of that as well, so that I can attract the right kind of people.
Yeah.
But yes, it's a constant battle.
Yeah. Thank you. Kenya?
Well, for me, I've attended a lot of funerals, and I've noticed one thing in common. There's only one person in that casket. You only have one life to live. Live that for yourself. And what others think about me, it really doesn't matter, because when that day comes, I'm gonna be the only person in that casket. So I don't care.
Pretty powerful stuff, you guys. Thank you. I think we may have a couple minutes for questions.
What's one transferable skill you would advise for other women that want to get in business?
To always stay true to you, stick to the plan. If your target is to open up a restaurant, open up that restaurant no matter what. Be non-negotiable. No plan B.
First of all, I love all your fashion up there.
We planned it.
You look
Yeah.
amazing. Is there a podcast or a book or any advice that you could give that is your go-to for helping to guide you to grow, and anything that you can share with us to help us to absorb your energy?
I listened to How I Built This by Guy Raz a lot, so that has helped, because right now you see them as billion-dollar companies, but knowing the journey that they went through to get there is very powerful, to show that if they can do it, you can do it. You are in the same situation they were. So that's my favorite podcast. And a book called Finding Founders. It's not very popular, but this was the first founder that spoke about all the lows and the highs of being a founder in a company. So those two.
My to-go book is Eckhart Tolle, A New Earth. And it's edging out the ego. So once I get rid of me, then I can deal with people. So they're just building their relationships.
What is that called? Sorry.
A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle.
Thank you.
It's like one of Oprah's favorite guy too. Yeah. So mine is, again, I go back to YouTube. I love just Googling motivational speeches. Often it's very successful people. And there's a really cool app that I've been sharing with a lot of my girlfriends as we all come out of COVID and living a new life. It's called I Am. And it's an affirmation app where on your phone, it'll just give you, a positive thought. So sometimes we're living in our negative mind, and you're like, how do I get out of that? Because there's just so much negativity going on with everything. So I highly recommend that. And I love audibles. I got a couple of NPR podcasts I love. How things get started and things, just to learn the journey. Like you said, it's very powerful and encouraging. A few audibles that I love. What's his name? Igor, the guy who was the CEO of Disney. I forget what it's called. Iger. Thank you. Google that one. That was one of my favorites so far, and I listened to it like just binged on it. But it was during the time when they were opening Disney in China, when he was trying to acquire Pixar and Marvel and all these concepts now that it's, all together. And I was like, that is like very, very interesting how that came together. And a lot of biographies. I love listening to biographies of successful people.
Yeah. Well, thank you again so much, ladies, for allowing me to moderate this discussion with you guys. Really appreciate it. And let's give a round of applause to Nikki, Kenya, and Vina.
Susan, do we have just one last question?
Oh, sure. Very quick.
Hello, everybody. Quick question. This is my first time here. I see restaurant owners, programmers, realtors, investors. It's all so typical. Is there another area as a woman that you can come up with? Like I have. That's one of the things. I make tequila.
Wow. That's cool.
I make tequila. I am 63 years old and I started this company when I was 53. I did a tasting one time at Total Wine and More, and I was serving my tequila. This gentleman comes to me. I know he was from India, and he said, "Are you selling alcohol?" I said, "Sir, we don't sell lollipops here." Okay? But anyway, he was like, "You are a disgrace, being an Indian selling alcohol, being a woman selling alcohol." I gave my middle finger. So it doesn't matter what age, what color, you have to diverse the other areas of business as well. That's just my 2 cents.
Thank you. Thank you.
So that means next year it's not going to be a champagne toast, it's going to be a shot of tequila. Right? That's right. And you know what? Thank you, ladies, so much. Vina, do you recall we actually had you on a showcase for our USICOC Foundation, our Spirit of Innovation, a few years back before she became the leader that she is. So congratulations on that. And we're so proud of you for what you've accomplished. But Kenya and Nikki, you guys are amazing leaders as well. And I can't tell you how inspired we are by your stories that lead us into our own journeys and gives us courage and inspiration to move on. So thank you all for that. And Renda, your amazing guidance in this conversation was fantastic. We enjoyed it so much. In the words of Eleanor Roosevelt, you gain strength, courage, and confidence by every experience in which you really stop to look fear in the face. You must do the thing you think you cannot do. Now, each one of our courageous speakers today has faced the unknown and won. These aha moments led these women to where they are now. They had the right attitude and the right frame of mind to turn their challenges into opportunities. These times of change build and develop your confidence so you can accomplish far more than you ever imagined. Now, we hope that you leave this conference with your cups full of promise and tequila, maybe. Just kidding. And inspiration and encouraged to press forward to be the best person and the best version of yourself. And as we end this program, I do need to thank a few people that I didn't get to thank earlier today. And we can start by our volunteers, our fantastic volunteers. A few of them are here. The rest of them are out in the lobby area, but they have worked very hard to make sure that this ran very smoothly. So bravo to you guys. Thank you so much. And of course, last but not least, our staff members, Miss Anu Benakati, who's been roaming around. You've been seeing her everywhere. Thank you, Anu. And of course, Rachel Dupin, our program manager, who is actually outside the lobby also. She's been on the back end of everything, making sure that everything runs smoothly. So, and thank you all for joining us today. And I know it feels good to be here. We can't wait to see you next time. And on that note, I bid you farewell until next year. Take care of yourself, but don't forget, we do have dessert and coffee in the lobby, so please enjoy. Compliments of Priya.